In this lesson, we'll discuss the anisotropic material type found in Softimage. So within Softimage, most materials do have the ability to produce some kind of a specular highlight, but you'll notice that most of the specular highlights that we see are this perfectly round, perfectly even result. Now, whenever we get something like this that is perfectly uniform and perfectly even, this is what's referred to as an isotropic result. Now, with the anisotropic material, we can start to break this up and start to get some non-uniform or anisotropic results. So, just like the name suggests. So, let's go ahead and we'll close out this little render preview. Let's select our sphere and let's give it an anisotropic material. So, let's go to Get Material and Anisotropic. There we are. We'll move this property page over here and I'll draw out a render region just so we can see what this looks like. Now, by default, you can see that we are not really getting anisotropic highlights. These are instead what are the normal isotropic highlights. So if we take a look inside the Illumination tab and scroll down into the specular area, we can see a few different parameters in here that we can start to adjust. First off, we have the glossy value, which is essentially just the color of our specular highlights. So if we were to come in here and start to give these some kind of a color, we can begin coming in and tinting our specular highlights something a little bit different if we choose to. Now below this is where we really start to have a lot of control over the anisotropic result. So the first thing that we have is the shiny U and the shiny V. Now as we start to increase these values, that will actually start to tighten up the highlights in that direction. So you'll notice that by starting to increase the shininess in the U or in the horizontal direction, you can see now we're starting to tighten up those specular highlights and make them now look much, much longer in the vertical direction. Now, we could also flip this around, so if we actually wanted our highlights to maybe stretch lengthwise or widthwise around this sphere, we can just start to bring that shininess down and start to increase our vertical shininess, which again will tighten up those specular highlights and now give us a much longer horizontal result. Now, if we wanted to, we could also come in and essentially flip these around. So just by simply choosing whether or not we are basing this on the surface U or the surface V orientation, by choosing one or the other, we essentially now come in and flip these two values around. Now we can also come in and add really just another layer of control over this by starting to change our anisotropic orientation. So if I were to press and hold the Control key on my keyboard, and start to slide this value around, you can see where that essentially now starts to give us another level of control over the actual direction of these highlights. So if we wanted these to be down in a very particular angle, that becomes now very, very easy to do. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is that even though this anisotropic material does give us these nice anisotropic highlights, it does not do the same for our reflections. So you'll notice if I were to come into my Transparency and Reflection tab and actually start to increase my reflection, again, just press and hold the Control key on my keyboard, you'll notice that we do have these really nice stretched out anisotropic highlights, but our actual reflections still remain isotropic or completely uniform in this case. So if you do come across a situation where you want to have some kind of an anisotropic reflection in your materials, a better choice for that would be the architectural material. And if you want to learn more about the architectural material, we actually do have a lesson that covers that within this course. So for now, that's a look at the anisotropic material type in Softimage.